in this.
I switch off the lamp also.
Okay, we are live and we can start at any time.
All right, good afternoon and welcome to the 10th of our panel discussions of the Discussion Forum for Online Teaching, or DFOT. These panel discussions that we have roughly once every 2 weeks have been on now. As you can see, there are 10 of them, so we've had them for about 3 months now. And we've covered a whole lot of issues related to online teaching. Very briefly, the reason we started DFOT is that all of us were pushed into this business of online teaching with a bang, and we were given no time to prepare, no time to do any particular thing, including switching off our microphones. Could I request everyone else to switch off microphones, please, at least for the moment. So we had to learn everything from the practice of online teaching to the practice of teaching online, and getting used to addressing classrooms that weren't there, classrooms that were at the end of a blank screen sometimes, teaching subjects where we had to demonstrate things with our hands in front of a live audience. We were forced to, we were just forced into this two-dimensional world dominated by names like Zoom and WebEx and Teams and God knows what else. Now, one of the issues that have come up repeatedly from day one has been the disconnect that teachers find themselves with their students. They do not, all teachers have complained, or at least talked about, alerted us to the fact that the connection that they find with a live class is simply impossible to replicate in any way or form by the online, in the online world. Over the months, we've noticed that this kind of complaint has reduced, but it has also been replaced by a variety of other kinds of concerns. How are the students doing? Because we do all realize that learning, as much as teaching, is a community activity. Students learn from their peers, sometimes more than they learn from their teachers. And teachers also rely on a lot of peer learning, and that is not happening now. The socialization that many students have looked forward to, the ideas that they get from looking at their own colleagues, and their evolution is guided by this kind of a community spirit, which is sorely lacking. Now, there's very little we can do about it because students come to an institution from very long distances. I teach at the IIT, and students over here literally come from every state of the nation. Other universities are not nearly as diverse. We have students, we have colleges that appeal to students only from a given city or from a single state. And the other diversity that we all have is the level of the social diversity. Some institutions have a huge social capital and a social diversity, whereas some are, of course, much narrower. And all these cause different types of problems. An issue that many of our panelists in the previous panels have talked about has to do with the mental health of students, the mental health of teachers, and these have come up in at different points in the discussion. To give you an idea, in previous panel discussions, we have considered to start with how to engage people. How does online, how do you engage people online? We've discussed how examinations are to be held online. We've discussed the interaction of online teaching with physical disabilities. We've discussed issues of teaching specific subjects such as the fine arts. We've discussed how do you teach, humanities subjects where you don't have blackboard work. How do you cope with subjects where you need and so on and so forth. Okay, so we've covered a whole range of issues in online teaching during our panel discussions, right? Today, what we'd really like to do is to discuss two things. One is that the stress that moving online introduces into the educational process, namely, what is the stress on teachers who are not able to see their classes, just as I'm not able to see all of you, but I've got some two-dimensional representation of all of you over here. And what about students who are instructed repeatedly to switch off their videos, switch off their audio, and just be passive receptacles for instruction? So what is the stress induced by that? What is the stress that they feel because of the uncertainty introduced into the future by the fact of this kind of an educational process? And what we'd really like to hear from all of you is how you are helping them to cope with this through either counseling or any other mechanisms that you have devised. And I would like especially to hear from all of us over here on the panel, how you deal with stress on the student side, and how do you deal with stress, if at all you have some experience, on the side of the teachers. The rules of our panel discussion are, as always, brevity, only because this time we've gone out of our way and we've got 6 of you. We've been able to convince 6 of you to come and speak with us. So if I could request that you all stick to a time limit of 10 or 12 minutes. I mean, this is a democratic panel, so it's not as if the clock will suddenly switch off or your video will be, I'm not going to do any kind of external, sort of limitations on your speech or your interventions, but I would request you please keep to about a 10 to 12 minute limit, and because we would like to finish by 4:30. As it is, we take 3 to 4:30 of Sundays, every alternate Sundays, and I have been threatened on this particular issue at various points in time. So with no further ado, let us start by requesting Professor Deepa Mohan, who is Dr. Deepa Mohan, who is a consulting clinical psychologist and the head of the Department of Applied Psychology at GITAM University in Visakhapatnam. Ma'am, please.
Yes, sir. Can I share my slides as if it is possible?
Yes, you are made a co-host, so I'm sure you can.
Okay.
There's a share screen button on the bottom.
Can you see my slides?
You can go to the full screen of presentation mode. That would be
I just have put a few slides. I mean, it's not number of slides, not too many. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. And at the outset, I would thank Professor Madhurima and all the speakers here for having me on the board. And I hope I will be able to do justice with what I am entrusted with. So I'm a clinical psychologist by training. I have trained at NIMHANS, Bangalore. And then I have been in Tamil Nadu for a little while. I was in Coimbatore for some time. And then I have been to, and I am at Vizag. I basically belong to Delhi, but then Vizag has been my husband's place, so I have moved over here. And I have off and on worked in different hospitals, and then now for last 11 years, I am at GITAM. I head the Department of Applied Psychology, and I also run my clinical practice. Okay, so yes, this online teaching, I have worded it differently, but this just came up as a bomb from the blue, as a shell from the blue, that suddenly we were like on March 17th, we were asked to tell the students to leave. And on March 19th, we were asked to leave. And then on 20th, 21st, we suddenly are told that by weekend or so, by next week, you should be starting with online classes with Zoom. Absolutely no idea what Zoom is, absolutely no idea how to go about doing it, and then how to actually fall into this routine. So I think all of us were left with this kind of crossroads, with this kind of difficulty, how exactly we would manage. And then suddenly we are in March, so obviously April and May we need to finish our courses, we need to have our exams, and we have no idea as to what we are up to. So I'm sure all of you who have been teaching, and then you have had so many sessions before, so most of them may have expressed their dilemmas, their disappointments, and the kind of frustration that we faced at different times during this last 9 months. And we are still facing it because we still haven't been given any clear instructions as to how to go about it. The students want to come, we are not sure whether we should be getting them. And then again, the management says get the students, we do not have enough facilities to distribute them across the class, so then we will have some more issues. So we don't want them to be exposed to all this. So we are in a dilemma both ways. And of course, side by side, we are working on upping our own technical skills to handle the whole thing very well. And I'm sure most of us have, worked with it very well. We have got used to it, so much so that I was laughing the other day because when I started doing it, my daughter, who's a medical student, she was at home. She helped me with whatever skills she had, and she helped me in opening up the classes, etc. And then sometime back, my husband was a neurosurgeon, but not well versed with Zoom. So he had to do a session at a conference, and he was completely at a loss. So I helped him out, and I, kind of made him do the presentation successfully. And I was laughing at myself. Look at what things were a few months back, and look at how proud I am feeling that I am able to help him out. So things have changed. It has made us much more technical savvy. We have become a lot more adept at things, but then still there are times that we feel very, very frustrated. So what are those things which frustrate us so much? Of course, all of us have faced this particular thing of moving into new technology. We have been given, 2 weeks of a training program as to how to go about doing certain things, but nobody really taught us, the day-to-day problems that you might face suddenly when the, the power goes off, or suddenly when the connection goes off. So what is it that we are actually facing? I have been specifically told by Dr. Madhurima not to really bring in the technical issues, so I won't be focusing on that at all. But then I would be focusing on the turmoil that we go with, right? Right now, I can see 4 people here. I can probably, see all 11 of you, but I can't really connect with so many more. So am I talking into a well? Many times when you're taking a class, you're talking into a well, because the students all the time are not really switching on their videos. In schools, we tell them to switch off the videos. In college, we ask them to switch on the videos, but then most of them do not. When we keep on asking again and again and again, maybe once after a few minutes, a feeble voice comes in, right? Or maybe, somebody answers, somebody doesn't answer. So it really frustrates us. So what is it exactly all this is doing to us? Is it affecting our mental health? I'm sure it does affect all of us at times, though we have, and I would really say all of us are very resilient because we have very effortlessly moved into, or rather slipped into, this new world. I can say for myself, I am 58 almost. So if I have eased into it, then definitely it is much more easier for a 30-year-old or a 40-year-old to switch into this. They are much more adept at technology. But then it does cause a lot of frustrations, a lot of difficulties at times. What are these that we usually face? Let's just talk about some of these things. So there are a lot of ill effects of online teaching that we may come across. It can cause a lot of social isolation, not only to us, but to the students, okay? It requires a lot of time management skills. Now, see, if you are going to the college in the morning, or you're going to your work in the morning, you are cut off from the rest of the world for those so many hours. So you don't really bother about what is happening at home because you finished whatever you had to do. And now you're focused completely on that. So you're not divided into 2 worlds. But when you're working from home, you're completely divided in these worlds. The family member may understand for some time, but after some time they say, oh, you're sitting at home, you can have a look at the kitchen. You can have a look at what is happening around. You can probably help doing some work at this point of time. So you are expected to do things and you are in a dilemma because your loyalties at that point of time lie with your teaching, right? So those are difficulties which, almost I think all the women especially face, right? So it requires a lot of time management. It requires a very fine balance between your family as well as your work, because the work demands are the same or probably more. I felt the work demands were much more during this last 9 to 10 months that we faced, that because every day there is a meeting, sometimes at 6 o'clock, at 7 o'clock, we do not know what is, so there is no time frame at all, right? Sometimes you're not able to communicate well with your students, and that leads to a poor skill development in them, especially when you're talking about psychology. It has a lot of practical component. When we are not able to bring that component, it frustrates us. We do find different ways of doing things. Now, like I have asked them to do internships, they have not been able to do personally, going to the hospitals or going to the clinical center. So, okay, fine, we are trying to draw cases from the internet, or I am passing on some cases to them, and then they have to work and develop a case study. We are finding innovative methods, no doubt about it. But then for that, again, a face-to-face interaction would have been much better to do this, which is not happening. So a Zoom class, all right, we give instructions, but then there are some who will always say, ma'am, this was not working, my phone was not working, my net is not working. So those are, sometimes you feel they're perpetual excuses, but you can't do anything about it. Okay, so there is a lack of control, and especially during an online assessment, as sir already mentioned, that you do not know how to handle the exam part of it. That's another issue which comes in. And online instructors tend to focus more on theory than on practice, and for certain branches or certain subjects which are very theoretical, we can manage. But then when it comes to practical, when it comes to mathematics, when it comes to labs, it becomes difficult to handle online stuff, because you have to find innovative ways of doing things. Okay, so what are problems that you might face? As I said, we did not have any online qualities with us. We did not have that kind of a technical support initially. Okay, and then you are not able to, if you are not able to create a supportive environment in the virtual classroom, which definitely will happen at some time or the other, because the students are not always very, very perceptive or not always very receptive in the class. So you have to create that kind of an atmosphere where the students feel comfortable in participating. The students do open up and answer, but not all will do it. And this way you can actually, miss out some of those, as it is the quieter students, you are not able to get them to speak at all. The level of synergy, if it is not adequate, okay, with the student, then as I mentioned, time management is very, very important. So you need to make sure that, everything is compartmentalized. You have time for everything and you are able to do things. And now, for the last 1.5 months, at least I can say for ourselves, we have been going to college. So again, the balance is still to be made, because there are still so many demands. We are going to college, but doing an online class. So there may be an issue somewhere, sometimes even managing the time, managing the classroom space, managing the Wi-Fi, etc. Those are issues. So managing work from home is a major issue that we face. And as I mentioned before, balance between family and work. Okay. But this has, I wouldn't say this is all negative. There are lots of strengths that online teaching has. There are times that you can actually get people from all over the world can join you for a class. We have done a PhD, the scholars classes, where one girl was joining from US. She attended all the classes that we did for her, right? So, and we have been able to get people as guest speakers from anywhere in the world. They are able to come in and join in as a guest speaker, which would not have been possible. I have been a guest speaker to somewhere in Delhi, somewhere in Hyderabad, somewhere right now I'm connecting. I have been, to Jammu. All those things would not have been possible for me to go physically, because it would have required a lot of time and support, right? So that's something which is important, which is a very positive thing. Then interactive learning environments can contribute a lot to the self-direction and critical thinking. If you can bring in some creative teaching, that also is very, very helpful. Okay, and then you can bring in a dynamic learning experience if you can collaborate between the student, and the teachers can collaborate. And most of these other factors, like sometimes age, dress, physical appearance, the student not attentive, all these are absent. So there's no distraction. You can continue with your lecture, and in between now you have these breakout rooms and you have polls. You can get the information. And one very important thing is this kind of a classroom is accessible 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So there is a lot of time
Mohan,
efficiency. If you want to, you can actually make best use of it.
So Dr. Mohan, 10 minutes.
So let's just very briefly, I would come to the basic thing that I would have, focused on is mental health. So we must understand mental health is an extremely important thing, and we cannot say that we are healthy if you are not mentally healthy. So what are the issues that one might face specifically in terms of mental health? You're talking into a well most of the time, right? It can sometimes frustrate you a lot. It can stress you so much that you're disconnected with people that you are trying to talk to. So those are issues which might, affect you a lot, especially a person who's a people's person who might thrive on, interacting with their students and probably is a popular person because he or she connects very well. That kind of person can be very, very disturbed or depressed. Okay, so that is another issue that comes in. Difficulty with uncertainty and technology. Sometimes you just start the thing, the current goes off, the Wi-Fi goes off, you do not know where you are. You're lost, right? I can give my own example. Couple of times I am just starting a webinar and the power has gone off. I really don't know what to do with it. Somehow, okay, there was something else available. There was some other way, or probably open my phone and talk. So, but then it does, scare you a lot. This would not have been there because you were, personally giving a class. Then, so it can lead to depression. It leads to a lot of social isolation because whatever it is, you're all by yourself. You're not interacting with your peers. You're not interacting. So there is no feedback. There is no, many times we just share a few things here and there and you feel, you're back on the road. But then this doesn't happen because you're all the time by yourself. So disconnect, and then frustration because the students do not participate many times. How much ever you try to, but then that they are not participating, but you continue going on. I was talking to some of my colleagues. They told me that they feel a lot of frustration if the students are not participating. Then also the anxiety to fill in the time, the 50 minutes that you need to fill in. Sometimes you may not have. You may have enough material, you may not have, or you may not, end up into a discussion. So then it's again an anxiety which we feel, and poor socialization with fellow teachers. So the lots of things that we need to discuss and talk about, we are not able to. So those are issues which come in. Okay.
Could you kind of wind up in the next couple of
minutes? I would, few minutes, that's it. So what are the basic things that we need to do about this? I've already said about depression. I've said about anxiety. I've said about the stress that we feel, the social isolation that we feel. So one very, very important thing is try to look the silver lining. As I just mentioned, what is it that you can do? Even though when you know that you are doing this online teaching, there is so much that you have learned. As I said, in the last 10 months, before 10 months, maybe in March, I didn't know anything about Zoom. Now I know so much about it. Okay, and then it has given me so much more to learn. I have been able to interact with so many different platforms. Those are the silver linings that you have gained by this pandemic. So you have upped on your technical skills. You have upped on your way of balancing things. You have upped on your way of coping up with this in a positive frame of mind. So if you can be negative, you are going to feel more and more frustrated. But then you look at what all you have learned. How resilient you have been. That's most important. So when we know that our own skills, and I know that I can actually go up a little bit more on my resilience, I can handle anything. If I have handled this, I can handle anything. So that kind of a positive approach and a positive outlook is what actually will take you through. And it has taken us through already. I don't find, I find most of the teachers have coped up very well, even though we all have complaints to give. But then we are all coping very well with our teaching assignments, with our dealing with our students, with our dealing with our own frustrations on a day-to-day basis, and doing very well. So that is the message that I would like to give here is we need to be positive. We need to look for the silver lining. And there is the best part is you can be anywhere and you can still be connecting with your teachers or friends or students. And the students can be anywhere and still be connecting and attending our classes. So that is the silver lining that this has given us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mohan, thank you very much. And, this is, you've summarized a lot of things that all of us have been saying sort of anecdotally. And that there are positives to the experience of being online.
Yes, sir.
Right. And one very important issue that you only tangentially talked about is the differential impact of the online medium on gender. In our country, particularly, girls, women students are disproportionately affected because there are other demands made on them which have to do with housekeeping, house rearing, and caregiving, and so on. Not exclusively, but there is a differential impact. And this is something that we hope to explore in a different panel discussion. Let me now again request all of us to please not, like many of these things are all we've talked about in previous discussion forums. I would also urge the panelists today to, see some of the work that has been going on, that Madhurima has done over the last 9 panel discussions. Many of these issues have been talked about over and over and over again, particularly to do with the alienation that teachers feel. What we'd really like to hear from you today is how to cope with that alienation. It's speaking of alienation, our next speaker, Professor Pragya Khanna, is from a government college in Udhampur. This is in Jammu and Kashmir, where in addition to all the other problems that one faces, we have an issue that the connectivity is uniformly very, very poor. It's all on 2G. So Pragya ji, can I request you also please to keep an eye on the time?
I would, sir.
Thank you so much.
I will just share my screen, sir, first. I hope I'm audible and visible also.
Yes.
So I have divided my presentation in 2 portions. That's the stress of online education. First, I'll be a little bit speaking on that, and then coping mechanisms. How
Can I request you to please use the full screen mode?
Brief myself. I would just finish within the stipulated time of 10 minutes. I won't take longer. Just let me point out certain issues that we in this UT of J&K are facing particularly. So at the outset,
Pragya ji, can I request you to please go into the full screen mode so that we can see the slides? Thank you.
Thanks for telling me that. So one thing that is very exhausting that for the teachers and for the students is that when you have to stare at your screen for a longer period of time, actually very exhausting. I mean, staring and trying to comprehend the messages that a professor is trying to teach the students, or maybe the students are trying to get from the professor, or a teacher is not able to see the students visibly like on the screen. So this is a new terminology that has come up, is Zoom fatigue, that I was reading a couple of days back in a paper, which says that our brains are facing it very hard to process the non-verbal cues like facial expressions, pitch of voice, and body language. And also being on camera, just knowing that you're on camera can drain your energy levels. Some of the times people are not very, very adept to be on the mode of public speaking, and then feeling pressurized how they are presenting themselves and performing in front of other people. So the teachers in this scenario are facing the same problems as students, I would say. Dr. Deepa has very nicely pointed out that certain problems that have come up when a teacher is working, especially she says female, but I would quote that males are also facing the same problem when they are working from their home environment and they are expected to do certain home related affairs together with their work related aspects. When they are working from home, the office timings they get encroached upon by the home assignments that they are getting expected to do. And also I would say that keeping your mind out and some of the times cause stress and frustration when the technology, I was told by Dr. Madhurima that I should not be speaking on any technical issues, but yes, J&K, we are, as Dr. Ramaswamy is pointing out, that we are still working on 2G, and it's really very, very frustrating when the technology gets malfunctioned in between the lectures, or when the students, I mean, major issue of anxiety and depression amongst the students and amongst the teachers is that we are still working on 2G. And then we are very, very grateful to 2 of our very brilliant stars from IIT Jammu who have devised a WISE app, kind of an app which works on 2G. Now, most of the colleges and most of the universities across the UT, they are adopting the WISE app for their teaching and learning process, because that's the one thing that we are now trying to, because Zoom and Google Meet, I mean, if I kind of post certain videos or record lectures to my students. They would say, what video, madam? That doesn't download. I mean, I am sitting on a hilltop, on a remote corner in the UT, so I'm not able to access. So this app is certainly helping us a bit. And then the mental and emotional pressures. We like too often we consider mental and physical aspects as different aspects to deal with, but actually they are very much interrelated. And most of the psychologists and psychiatrists sitting here today would agree with me that whatever mental or emotional pressures one is feeling, they can be expressed on your physical health when it starts deteriorating. Moreover, sitting in front of the screen all the time also leads to your poor postures, knowingly or unknowingly, and then that leads to your lower levels of immunity, lower levels of enthusiasm, and all other way. I had a psychometric test done for my students in my college, wherein we did it under the expert guidance of a clinical psychologist, and we had a SWOT analysis done also for my students, and most of the students, they complained of eye strains, also of constant headaches, tiredness. There's a number of phobias, paranoias, heart rates increased in stomach upsets and frustrations, irritability, anger, lots of problems the students discussed with the doctors and the psychologist who was on board that day, that I was myself surprised that so many issues my students are dealing with. And then teachers who are keeping mute and listening to the students afterwards came to me saying, madam, we are facing the same problems as well. But while you are focusing only on students, why don't you look at the teachers, what dilemma they are going through? And I am very, very happy that Dr. Ramaswamy today has pointed out that we should be looking into the teachers' perceptions towards the online, see what they are facing. While I was teaching, say, 1 year ago, in my college, it was so very easy. I'm getting my lecture prepared the previous day and getting it delivered for 1.5 hours in the class. That was okay. But now if I have to teach, the similar thing would take me 3 to 4 hours preparing my lecture and then interacting on Zoom and then sending them the PDFs and my videos. That takes a longer while and obviously causes a lot of stress. As we have already discussed, Dr. Deepa has very nicely pointed out certain problems in her play. I do not want to repeat on any of those. Plus, this COVID pandemic has brought lots of frustrations and lots of problems in the lives of people. Like there have been deaths surrounding the families, there have been long illnesses, there has been economic disability, financial implications of it. And the students in my college, they have been coming up and telling me that we have an abusive home environment, which I don't think anybody has pointed out up till now. Most of the time the abuse is exhibited during economic uncertainties, where the father has lost his job or maybe the mother is not able to manage the household income well. So in that kind of environment for a student, it's very difficult to cope up with the lectures that are going on throughout the day by the teachers. And then there are certain issues that out of frustration, the students, they are amongst their own groups, amongst their own WhatsApp group, are showing a very abnormal behavior, like sending angry messages to each other, posing certain kinds of threats, cyber stalking, masquerading. One girl student of mine, she reported one day, came to me and saying, madam, just sort this issue out, that we are, mine is a co-educational institution. So she says, just segregate the groups for male and female students, because the male students, they pick up our phone numbers and then they kind of cyber stalk us or give our phone numbers to other boys who keep on sending unsolicited calls to us. So that was a great deal of problem that I thought, there are kind of certain anxiety issues might have come up and the students are dealing in such an abnormal way. So another thing that, to deal with youth and to educate them properly, and that too in a virtual environment, is really very problematic. And cyberbullying, is kind of very, very common nowadays. So dealing with such kind of problems, and that too in a virtual environment, but our teachers somehow are coping up. Now I will just, give you an overview what we as a college are doing. I told you that we have undergone the psychometric test, SWOT analysis of a student, just to know what level of anxiety, what level of problems they are currently facing. Also, we kind of keep inviting leading specialists in psychiatry, mental health and physical health on board, the doctors who are keen to serve the public. So we keep inviting them on board to interact with our students in the college environment, and then the problems that the students, and they are also made to fill up certain Google forms wherein they answer certain questions posed by those clinical psychologists or other people, and they kind of try analyzing what kind of problems. Then we can also arrange personal meetings for them. So this is the kind of pamphlet that we have put on all our websites and all Facebook page of the college, wherein we have a tele-counseling helpline and also a dedicated email ID meant for the students who have certain kind of problems, wherein the college is providing them support. And then there is a very important aspect that MHRD, Government of India, has launched this Manodarpan scheme, wherein every college, every university is supposed to be creating 3 cells: psychological counseling cell, placement cell, and a counseling cell for the help of the students. And each college, each university is supposed to be organizing one program every month for all these 3 groups. And under that, we have been carrying out a number of programs wherein the experts from different areas are invited time and again, the different doctors for mental, physical health, making people aware of the thing. And also we are marching ahead with organizing lots of programs, lots of fun-filled activities other than the routine monotonous academic thing, so that lighten up the mood of the teachers as well as of the students by yoga, meditation, and other aspects, fostering creativity and talent. And this is how our college is being projected on the media for organizing all those programs, varied kinds of poster making competitions. Then we have open photography contests, because mine is a remote area wherein my college is located in a hilly region in the UT, and that is a very scenic, mesmerizing beauty in that area. So I tell my students to click pictures of their vicinity, and also just keep posting those pictures. And then we have photography contests, and also we invite spiritual and mindfulness experts, yoga experts on board and then video presentations and blog or paragraph writing, poster making on different asanas and mudras, and video shooting. I mean, students doing different yogas, asanas. I mean, this is a routine activity with us. Also, we celebrate different days, international, national importance, like drug abuse, illicit trafficking, also about the vegetation, whatever they find. I mean, they are told to enumerate the herbal, nutritional, medicinal value of all the plants in their vicinity. Try planting the saplings for giving them as donations to the college later on when the college is resumed. And this is what we have been getting from the students from the all over. And both youth skills day, that is the thing that I've celebrated, like and wherein I kind of told the students to do any of the just showcase their talent, any of the skills that they have apart from their regular curriculum. Whatever they have, they should showcase it by way of creating small little videos and presenting, and by way of their shooting, dancing videos, and painting, whatever art skill they had. In order to engross them in some other activity other than weaving their monotonous routine to some kind of recreation. Different days, as I was telling you, I've been celebrating Teachers Day, Mahatma Gandhi Jayanti, World Habitat Day, International Day of the Girl Child, and then educating them on all SOPs of COVID-19. That was our duty to do it in the first place. Nasha Mukbar was a very, very important, significant program that we did. And because during these Corona pandemic times, students have been, we have been hearing news, and there has been a lot of drug addiction going on in all over the country, and also certain cases have been reported from our place. So we have, organized this program in order to just, educate them about the ill effects. And the students of our college have written wonderful blogs and have posted their messages everywhere on the Facebook page of the college, and sending message in their WhatsApp groups. And they have really participated overwhelmingly in this. And then there was Jal Shakti.
Hello, Pragya ji, could you now wind up, please?
I am winding up. So for the teachers, I would say we have been organizing certain programs. Currently, my college is undergoing a faculty development program wherein the resource persons are from all over the country, wherein they are speaking of specialized topics related to how to deal with the tools and technologies concerning the online teaching, e-learning, screen recording, open educational resources, smart features, how to prepare the slides well, PowerPoint, quizzes, and such kind of activities that we are doing to cope up with the stress so the students and the teachers can work in a mutually understandable environment and can deal with the things which are coming up in this scenario.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Pragya ji. And I mean, I think it's remarkable what you are managing to do in the face of so much adversity in Chenani. I think that most of us in the rest of the country do not quite appreciate the difficulties that you must be having. In addition to the going online with 2G is a big challenge. And you have actually highlighted a whole number of issues, particularly to do with the mental health and again the differential impact on women students versus male students.
Very
Can I now request Dr. Arvinder Singh of Ashoka University to share with us what Ashoka has been doing to look after its students and its teachers during this pandemic?
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot for this opportunity, Professor Ram, Professor Madhurima, and everybody else. It's a great joy to be on this forum. And I'm just going to jump into things because I know that I'm very keen to hear what others have to say. So yes, you all have very beautifully laid the context of what the problems are with students, with faculty. I just want to bring the mental health component over here. I mean, here, what I find is that other than the teaching, the caregiving demands on the faculty have increased because a lot of the students contact the faculty with their emotional issues. They're not able to put in their assignments on time. They need extra accommodation or they need some kind of help. Students who have social anxiety, it's very difficult for them to be on these kind of platforms and make presentations. So faculty have been actually grappling with not just their own issue. And let's not forget that this online teaching there's a context to it, which is the pandemic. And that has actually, that suddenness, that jump, that sense of, being not in control, that sense of loss of control actually permeates in every sphere. Not just in the teaching and the challenges that you all have very beautifully outlined in terms of new technology to internet and so on and so forth, but also the fact that the boundaries have blurred, between the home and the work. So the expectation probably sometimes from the administration for the faculty is to put in more work, more research, because you seem to have more hours. But quite the contrary, actually, there is a lot of anxiety that the faculty is going through, their own, how to deal with the new setup, the added responsibility of being the caregivers, providing emotional support to students, which they hadn't really signed up for, in the way that students are reaching out to them with the kind of problems. Whereas they're empathetic, but they also don't know, they can't hack it on how do we find what kind of accommodation to give, what will help. And the question of how do I ensure that I'm being fair to all students, those who need the kind of accommodation that they're asking for, and the ones who have actually, or some who may be misusing it, the fact that there is some kind of empathy for it. How do we hack it? And the question always is, how do I ascertain that what kind of accommodation can I give to the student? Also, can I demand some kind of proof? And even if I'm asking for that proof, how do I understand? How do I make sense of it? If somebody is sending me a psychiatric prescription, as a faculty member, I don't know what that means. I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not a psychologist. I don't understand what that is. And how does it translate into what can I do to help the student? Also, what has happened is, so at 3 levels, we are working from home, right? And I'm not a faculty. I just occasionally do guest lectures, but I do understand the pulse of what faculty may be going through. They have their own family issues, right from the background sound to having to run and quickly sort of attend to the kitchen while you're sort of also doing something in the class, etc., etc. I think the switch from one to the other space is very difficult. And that is the blurring of the boundaries within the mind that is more problematic, or that requires more attention than anything else. The second is, the issues of the students that they are bringing. Like I said, the emotional caregiving that you may have to give other than just the academic inputs. And the third is your own issues as faculty. So, you're supposed to be working at, actually, the tasks have increased. The expectation that the administration may have in some cases that, and I'm not talking about Ashoka, but in another forum, that I gauge where I was sort of presenting, there were many other people who were presenting that, there is an expectation of more research, because in order for, the faculty member to sort of get into the tenure and so on and so forth, you need to have more output. The expectation is, since you're working from home, you're not traveling, you have more time and you can work. But actually, quite the contrary, there is very less time. So let me jump quickly and take 2 or 3 minutes into what can we do. I think the challenge is how to keep the faculty motivated. And one of the things is, I know there are no administrators here, but if the administrators could ensure that the faculty is motivated through various gestures, whatever it could be, to understand and accommodate and, cut some slack on the expectations from the faculty, which also would result from the faculty cutting some slack on the students. This is an extraordinary time. It is not only about online teaching, it is about the pandemic, it is about not knowing, it's about the kind of anxiety everybody is going through, and each one of us is on the spectrum. And I think I mean, at least in this forum, I'm pretty sure everybody has had someone they've known, or known of, or heard of, or someone close to them who's known of someone who has been impacted by the pandemic. And it's not just a number. So when you lose somebody very close, you don't know how it's going to impact you. That kind of anxiety trickles everywhere. So we need spaces to do that. At Ashoka University, we have Ashoka Center for Wellbeing. I'm the founder and director of this center. This was founded 4 years back, and it's a center for well-being. So it's not really, it doesn't just have the curative aspect, like, you contact only when there is something that's not going well with you, and it's open for student, faculty, staff, everybody. So because it just believes that everybody involved, we believe in the emotional robustness of each one of the Ashokans as much as we value the academic rigor that the faculty and the students bring in. So to that tune, we have spaces, we have a center where, in a very confidential way, the students, faculty, staff, anyone can approach for sessions for counseling. And, we also run a helpline where sometimes you just need to get it off your chest. Talking to someone helps you gain that perspective and move forward. So it's not like a therapeutic, long-term therapeutic process, but short-term interventions on how you can, feel better than what you're feeling currently. We also have the preventive and promotive aspect of well-being. So we actively, sort of promote the idea of well-being through various interventions that we have. You can check on our website if you like. This probably is not the forum for me to describe all, but a couple of things that, what we can do as faculty and what we can spread to our faculty members is, spend a few minutes with the students in the beginning of the class, because I totally agree. It's very difficult to stare at a screen, where you don't see faces. Connecting is difficult. Just, a little bit of sharing or a small exercise of centering or breathing or anything that, you're familiar with. You don't have to be an expert in it. We really don't need experts. And that is one thing that I'd like to sort of point out, that, we all have to contribute in sort of destigmatizing the idea of seeking help, because many of us are sort of going through something, but we find that, seeking help is not a good word. So for everybody out there, encourage your students to seek help. talk to someone. There are helplines. I know TIS has iCall as a helpline, which is around the clock helpline. Vandrewal Foundation also has a helpline. It's very easy for you to Google and find out the numbers. Share them with your students, share them with the faculty. Sometimes all you need is just talk to someone and unburden and move on. I mean, we just need to create our strength as much as we can. At Ashoka, we also have something that we call the Gatekeepers program, which is the first responders program. We essentially train people in picking up signs and signals of anxiety and somebody who might be at a high risk like suicide, etc., talking to them, asking the question and connecting them with the right resources. You could do it for faculty members around you. So stay connected, with your students, with faculty and your family members. It could be happening in your family. And people who do talk about suicides that have been attempted, the family members say that's the last thing we thought would be happening. But actually the signals are there. So familiarize yourself with that. At Ashoka, we are very happy to reach out to your universities and conduct these online training programs, orienting students or your faculty to doing that. So if anybody's interested, please do connect with us, and I am happy to sort of facilitate that process. One of them is also, let's not also leave it for someone else to look after us. Reach out to, have small groups of faculty members, keep checking in, just reach out, just do something, which is very self-care oriented, because it is actually, we have to keep rebooting ourselves to be able to reach out and step our game up for handling what is happening currently. So whatever it is, trust Ram, you were asking me about, how do we figure it out, who's fibbing in terms of the student and who's the real one and how do we really help? I would just say, trust on the side of, giving the benefit than the other way around. Because, maybe one time somebody might take advantage of you, but you might have the potential of saving many, many more who genuinely need it. So I would my message would be that if you're unsure, whether the person is, stressed or is in crisis, seek more information. And if you can't seek that information, because I find at Ashoka, we have the office hours and, the faculty treats the office hours very, very, we treat it very sacredly. And we use this space to ask the students to talk about whatever is bothering them as well. So they reach out, they write to the center as well. The center never gives any information about the student, but we help the faculty also at least see that the student has been coming on the following dates for counseling support. Nothing else, everything is confidential. That just helps the faculty take a very informed decision. So if a faculty sees that somebody's been coming for the last 6 months or 3 months, or there seems like somebody's making an effort. Because I think as a faculty, the only question is somebody doing something about this problem? Because, mental health concerns, unlike physical, difficulties and disabilities, are not visible. And the anxiety will impact two people very, very differently. So it is very difficult. And there are no specific rules on what kind of accommodation to be given. There are very generic guidelines, which can be followed, which can be accessed as well. So,
thank you so much, Arvinder. Can I?
Questions. So that's as much as I want to offer for today. Thanks for this opportunity, Ram.
No, well, more than this opportunity, Arvinder, I'm going to request you now. You've talked about a whole bunch of resources and you have allowed people to go and search on Google. That is not always easy for everybody. So can I request you to, you already know these resources. Would you just send them to us in an email and we will put them up on the website so that people don't have to go through the hassle of searching for things that they know only incompletely. And your offer of taking of yourself or enabling sessions at other institutions, I have a feeling that you will be finding people writing to you about this. So please also send us the appropriate place to write to you and those kinds of details.
Consider it done. I'll do it as soon as we finish.
Thank you so much. Our next speaker is from Ambedkar University in New Delhi, Dr. Ashis Roy. Okay, the introductions are going to get shorter and shorter, Ashish. And when you see me on your screen along with yourself, you know that your time is running down. Okay, so your 10 minutes starts now. Go.
Thank you, Professor Rami, for organizing this very important session to look at the mental health concerns of teachers and students during this time of the pandemic. And it's been quite enriching to hear different people speak about their experiences and the activities that they've been doing. I've been part of a larger project at Ambedkar since 2009 about setting up perspective in in-depth psychology, borrowing a lot from psychoanalysis and developing programs at different levels. So we have programs from the undergraduate to the PhD level, which train people, and we have an MPhil program which trains people in to become psychotherapists. That's where I'm most invested now, along with the work in the university clinic Ehsas. Um, I think while listening to different uh, participants who have presented so far, I was something came back to me again and again, which is come to me many a times working in a social sciences institution, that there is such a huge gap between intellect and experience in university contexts. And it's so difficult for, I think, for the kind of design that social science universities have to actually think of a way of understanding breakdown. And this pandemic has kind of forced people to look at that question in a very central and poised way, which has affected both teachers and students in a major way. So I think that there needs to be a shift in some way of not just thinking about how we have been successful in doing online teaching, but also where is that there has been paralysis or there has been panic. Because if we don't think in that direction, then it's very hard to connect with those so many students who actually don't have the capacity to attend or don't have the internal capacity to be able to do their assessments. And I think that online teaching is good for those students who have good internet connectivity and also who are very well motivated for themselves, who can actually go ahead and make the best out of it. But for many people, it's a huge, huge challenge. And I think universities need to now think that do they want to give mental health a different kind of a language and space in their understanding? And I think especially this pandemic, which has made us think about so many deep anxieties of losing people around us, of contagion, of being isolated, not having anyone to connect with, living in a constant sense of fear. These mental health concerns have really gotten aggravated. Uh, and because I work in the university clinic and I am a part of programs where we deliberately invite a lot of subjective experiences and thinking around anxieties and breakdown, uh, it has only been that route which has worked for us so far, whether it is with teachers or with students, that rather than always thinking about what we can do to appear successful, if there are possibilities of creating forum where you are not able to succeed, where you are having huge difficulties, where you are really struggling. And thankfully, we have had a good number of teachers and therapists and a community who's very sensitive to the mental health concerns. And whenever we face issues like this, particularly in students, we try and create a kind of a support system, which we call a circle of care, which involves a faculty member, a therapist, and the student, and some members of the student's family, so that we are all in touch together thinking about what is happening in the student's life. So that helps in giving that psychological disturbance a space. It's also important to keep in mind that today people are not looking at mental health and mental health problems as something that they want to get away from. They want to, at least in our context, what we have learned is that they want to have a sense of perspective around it. They want to have an agency to understand why is this happening to me. And our task has been to, in some ways, facilitate that agency. And rather than to say that, okay, you can distract it or take a medication. So we follow a life historical perspective, which involves looking at different life stages and also involves looking at the present situation to be able to address some of these concerns regarding mental health. Most recently, we had a kind of a meeting because so many participants have said that one of the things that has happened in the loss because of this pandemic is the loss of a community in the university, and that's such a big drawback where teachers can't meet each other, where students can't meet each other, and that also aggravates so many of their problems and frustrations that apart from the fact that your personal life and professional life really have no boundary today. You can be working on a Sunday also because you're supposed to be working all the time now, which also means that you don't have a boundary between work anxiety and an anxiety about your personal life. Uh, so we had a session where we invited all the teachers and the non-teaching staff of the university. And it was a very heartening session where people actually connected with each other, talked about the fact that how they felt when they lost close members of their family. So there is a huge sense of alienation that this overproductive attitude tends to kind of encourage, that you actually don't know what's happening in the other person's life. You don't know what they're suffering from. And if you don't have that sense of connection and belongingness to the institution where you're working, then obviously your stress levels and your sense of alienation are going to increase. So I would suggest that if university contexts can provide a safe space for teachers to come together in these forums, whether it is in small groups or in larger groups, with somebody who has a training in mental health so that they can facilitate this process, that would be a very big thing. So I think that uh, somehow there is a tendency to not to normalize this entire experience of the pandemic through online teaching, through saying that we are able to through the discourse on performance, which is not really helpful because the pandemic is an ongoing trauma, which is going to take a lot of time to process. And somewhere in the system of the university, there has to be some kind of an allocated space which acknowledges that, look, people are working and people are doing this, but they're also deeply, deeply traumatized. So that is something I would really like to press for. Secondly, I have found that in my work with both in mentoring students who come from the lower socioeconomic parts of the society where their families are very conservative, especially female students. And somebody already said that how I think Professor Deepa Mohan said that for a woman, it becomes even more difficult to be at home and work because she's expected to do the things at home and also work simultaneously. For women students, it's doubly hard to even think at home because the university is such a sacred space of freedom, of just thinking freely, of being able to write, being able to converse, and being trapped in that environment all over again makes them really, really difficult. It makes it very, very hard for them to think. So I think they deserve a special kind of a consideration that this is something that could be going on in their life. And as I think someone shared that, you can't even switch on the camera. So there's a huge absence of what is private. And where is it that, so one's own personal space, one's own mental space has now required a kind of a redefinition. And that should be taken into consideration as well. I think apart from that, it's a very widely, I think, known thing that the mental health concerns in the university setting in students have increased a lot. There has been an increase in suicidality. There has been an increase in social anxiety in the sense of panic. And I think it also depends on what kind of an approach do you really adopt to look at these things. That do you say that these are things that always existed as a part of the human psyche and they have come up? Or do you say that this is because like a cause and effect thing that, this pandemic will go and these parts of us will go? Now that really depends on, it depends which approach you want to take. But I honestly feel that people are also confronting parts of themselves which have lied buried inside themselves. And this pandemic has in some ways brought those things to the surface. And it's important that there's a relationship with those parts of themselves, which is enabled in some way, rather than thinking that if you think positively, if you do this, it will go away. Because for many people, very honestly, it doesn't go away. It stays there. And the more you allow that kind of a space, that kind of a mental space, a perspective, a voice, and I really think what is required today is a voice, is a language through which these experiences can be translated, through which the people don't feel that they are experiencing these things by themselves, whether they are teachers or students. And it's only through that that we can actually bolster the sense of the community, bolster a sense of the fact that we are in this together. And it can be very helpful if it's done sensitively. But if we try to override that experience altogether, it can have other kinds of effects. And that's where I think that somewhere this advent of technology, and technology is always about being able to do things. So I can send an email right now while I'm here. That is the kind of fantasy that technology puts us into, that we are very powerful, but we are living in a contradiction that actually we are also very powerless because of this virus and the situation around. So we are always in those two worlds where we are being made to deal with something powerful. I mean, being made to feel powerful, but we're dealing with something which is really, really scary. So, so that's a huge kind of a paradox that all of us are living with, and that also requires, some reflection. Yeah, but
Thank you
that's
so
all
much,
that I would like
Ashish.
to.
Thank you for highlighting, issues that need sort of serious consideration. This business of being powerful and powerless is no, the moderator of a session like today feels both powerful and powerless. In the sense, I would like you to continue to make your point, and at the same time, I know that the clock is ticking. I would urge all our panelists today, and I would urge to bhul jao. Let me request all of you. You realize that you are number 10 in this panel discussion. There have been nine discussions before, and we have, as a matter of fact, had one entirely on administrators. What is the role of administration in this entire business of online teaching? And many of your interventions, what you have mentioned, what Arvinder has mentioned, actually Pragya is our only administrator here today, and I know and I can see from her reactions that she is making a lot of, she's making mental notes about what kind of spaces to offer her faculty and what kind of things that she could be doing. So I have a feeling that many of the messages that you are sending out will be listened to very, very eagerly by administrators. And we've actually had, we've taken the trouble to invite administrators to also reflect about their responsibilities and their roles in a situation like this. We as faculty members have to deal with students who are facing an uncertain classroom context. Administrators worry about the future of their students, the placements and so on and so forth. And that's another ball game. Our next speaker is Dr. Geetanjali Kumar. She's a visiting, she's a counseling psychologist and a visiting counselor at the NIFT and NSUT. I would like to really hear from you, Dr. Geetanjali, as to what kinds of problems students and teachers have been expressing to you in this recent time. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, Professor Ramaswamy, for inviting me to this forum. And listening to everybody makes me feel that we are all sailing in the same boat, being into this helping profession, trying to help students and faculty and staff of two very premium institutes of our country, along with the various other students that I've interacted through the Manodarpan helpline, and also through the Delhi University students pouring in. The recent conversations which I've just had yesterday and even in the morning is, I don't know what's happening with me. I tend to cry a lot. I get angry at every drop of a hat. This is a verbatim of a student in the final year of a college of Delhi. ranging from here, I listened to a teacher who says that for 15 years I've been teaching, a teacher of a college of Delhi. I thought I teach well and I was able to connect with students well. But for the 6 months I'm teaching them, I feel I'm at loss. Why do you feel yourself at loss? What makes you think so? I was just reminded of the first panelist who said, it is speaking in the well. It is difficult to have them on board. It is difficult to have a feeling that we are all together. I never knew that I will have problems. I will face a challenge in controlling them. The classroom management is a problem for me. And I detest teaching in this online setup. I'm waiting for this to finish. I'm waiting for us to be back in the college. She said this. Much more than her students, she felt that she needed to get back to the normal way of the college. So these are two case studies, very recent case studies, which I'm sharing. And that definitely makes me come back to the point which I hold on to very strongly, is that apart from the technological connect which we have today, we I think we really need to connect back emotionally with both the students and the teachers, and both of them doing it together for themselves is very, very important. How do teachers create that space, that safe space through this virtual medium before the class, where the teacher and the students, whosoever are together, they speak their minds. They talk about the weather, they talk about what's happening in the news these days, they talk about the latest web series they've seen. Anybody wants to talk about anything, the teacher is creating that welcome space for them. It is not only beneficial for the stress management of the student, it is the teacher also looks at it as an easy getaway, and she also feels that she's being much more productive than only teaching them, because the emotional connect tends to happen very strongly. And as Antonio Damanso mentioned, we are not thinking machines, we are feeling machines that can think. So that we are all feeling, and we can feel, I can feel the way you feel, is very, very important. Both for the teacher to reinforce and both for the student to feel caressed by this act of teacher. An activity I suggested in a college was, if the teachers can have certain days fixed for themselves, because it is not only the students' mental health that needs to be catered to. My focus now is in catering to the mental health of the faculty, because happy teachers create happy classrooms. This was a slogan of Delhi government for their schools, but I am holding on to it. I borrowed it from them in terms of how do teachers feel happy in their classrooms. So one string of activity which has college has taken up is, they have mindful Mondays, where one of the teachers of their college, they have about 36 of them, and one of the teacher comes up on every mindful Monday with five exercises, in terms of breathing exercises, in terms of observational exercises. So mindfulness is being practiced for half an hour. So on Mondays are mindful Mondays. They have a titled as Tickling Tuesdays, where there is where any teacher gets a chance to talk about something humorous. She shares few jokes with them. It is a humorous poetry. It is a humorous anecdote. So they have Tickling Tuesdays. They have Wise Wednesdays, which is like a book club meeting where anybody of the teacher group, of the faculty group, and even their staff group, the staff members, the office staff, the account staff, administrative staff are also welcome to join in, and they all discuss a book which they have read. Recently, they've talked about the book Option B by Aisha Sandberg, which talks about how she copes with the death of her husband. So they discuss that book. Then they have Fueling Fridays, where they're discussing recipes. So there are some kind of gateways for teachers being practiced by a college, and the feedback of the faculty and the staff is that it tends to make them feel closer to the old normal. The new normal, they are not the new normal which will build up is not known how it is going to be, but somehow getting closer to the old normal is helping them flourish and get back to their sense of purpose. Apart from this, certain hands-on techniques, which is to breathe properly, the count of 4 breathing. It is there on the websites of different colleges, both on the NIFT also and on the NSUT also. Certain stress management techniques have been suggested to the colleges, to both the colleges. There are a lot of orientation. There are a lot of small group meetings being organized for the first year students, for the final year students, because I realized that the anxieties of the first year student is very different from the final year students. I remember the first year students mentioning of a B.Ed college to me, of an education college to me, as to the entire fun of going to the college is lost. The first semester is over, and I'm afraid that the second semester may also go on like this. They've started with their colleges in the month of September, and they're wondering whether they'll get to see the real college in the month of March or April. So one of the students said that I have 9 WhatsApp groups, and it is essential for me to stay in these 9 WhatsApp groups, because what's happening, I come to know. And that's my only way to form friendships. But this kind of friendship formation is a burden for me. Every time there is a message blinking, it is a distraction from me. It doesn't let me concentrate. So lack of concentration is something which is being experienced both by the teachers and the students. So I have catered to the needs of teachers in helping them get back to their concentration, because reading a textual material on the net and reading it from the book is very, very different. So these days, as one of the panelists also said, that there is a huge thrust on research. So all the research which the teachers are also doing is happening through the technologies or through the online medium only. So the research, when the kind of readings which they are doing is also causing them concentration issues, cervical issues, those aches and pains. So a lot of yoga and meditation is being suggested to them. I have certain YouTube videos which I share on their personal windows. Lot of relaxation music which I send them across. I formed a group, a broadcast group of teachers and students with common needs. So what kind of a video, motivational video, a TED talk, this particular group would benefit from, I send them that. There are a lot of beautiful Pinterest posters which I share with particular groups of students and faculty, depending upon their own needs. So
with us as well, Dr. Kumar, because this would be very useful for various people in this who come to DFOT from time to time. So I'd really appreciate it if you could share it with us also.
Certainly, I would. So, Professor Swami, I take it as a signal that my time is up.
Yes, my face has appeared next to yours on the screen. Time is winding down. I must confess that I like your idea of giving a name to a day, and I call these Serendipity Sundays, where you start discussing a certain topic, but you learn different things about different topics, not in a completely random way. And one of the things that I've learned today is that I will keep time in the following method, that after 10 minutes, I will start sharing your screen with you so that you find the urge to wind down. Were there any other points you wanted to make, Dr. Geeta?
I just wanted to end it on that little note that howsoever we are doing, whatever we are doing, somewhere let's acknowledge and embrace the moment. So I am imperfect. Everything is not fine in my life, whether as a student or as a teacher or as a faculty. Let's first acknowledge it and let's seek help.
Yeah.
And That's all what I would say at the moment, but definitely sometimes more.
Thank you so much, Geetanjali ji. And I want to actually, I have been saying this a little too frequently in this particular episode, but many issues we have discussed in different parts of this discussion forum and different episodes of it. We are planning to make short videos of all these various panel discussions so that the basic points can come out. After all, nobody has time to watch 1.5 hours of a panel discussion. We'll come, we'll abbreviate everything down to some 8 or 10 minutes to try to get things, in a little bit of a capsule form. And Madhurima and I and a few of us are actually working on those, and we hope to bring you shorter, improved versions of all these. Because many of the tips that you give are very useful. They are actually useful to a large community. And over again, many of you all have pointed out, and this has been the philosophy of the FOT. There is no expert over here. All of us are winging it. Okay, there is no grand theory of how to teach online, which has been determined for the country of India. We are all winging it. And what we'd like to learn from each other is what works and what doesn't.
Exactly.
And what works in one place doesn't always work in another place. And no part of our country, or each part of our country, is unique. And all of them have different problems. One that we acknowledge in many different ways is the northeast of India. And our next speaker, Dr. Bhagabati, is from the Gauhati Medical College in Gauhati. He is retired from there, and he was the former head of the Department of Psychiatry. So Dr. Bhagabati, please.
Thank you, Professor Ram, and everyone in the panel. And so I'm in an advantageous position because I've listened to everyone, and things are easier for me now that most of the things have been spoken. So I don't think I have much to add on to. During my my teaching program since 1979, I've been a teacher and retired in 2017. And after that, I'm working with the schools, particularly trying to add values to the education, different values. And some of the feedbacks that I have received, I also interact with school and college students, as a part of my, outside my teaching profession. So during the process that I've been going through of interacting with the students during this phase, the post-pandemic, some of the emotional problems that the students have told me they go through, and what is being done, and I'm going to focus on that. So the emotions that have been, they told me is a sense of loss, at the initial phase, and which is continuing to a certain period of time, that we have lost a lot of things in life during this period. Perplexity, then uncertainty, indecisiveness and uncertainty. And then they ask the question, what now? What is going to happen now? A dark tunnel, going to a dark tunnel as if there is no light at the end of it. Then, of course, anxiety, and in some cases, a depression, which all of us go through once in a while, but there's a persistent depression in some of these particular students. And quite often it is about the anxiety related to the future. So where am I going? What is going to happen to me in future? Because this is the stage when students think about their future, and this is where they ask, where am I going? And of course, the logistic problems were there, which I'm going to talk to. And of course, the burden had added to the stress, burden of adjusting to the new situation, both about the viral pandemic and also the adjusting to the new system of education to the online mode, which is added to the stress. And that also has added to there's some additional stress, because while at home, they sometimes have to deal with the home routine, the meal times, etc. Sunday visitors come or the telephone comes, and then they are emotionally torn between what is to be done. And then there's a disturbed concentration. The persistence of the, the academic schedule that they have to follow was difficult. And quite often the frustration due to logistic failures, which I think all of us know about it. One particular student have told me she is from Mizoram, and then she was studying in Delhi. From Delhi, I think some books were sent. But in Mizoram, the books took a longer time than other parts of the country to reach there. So these are some issues that they have felt. And while in the going to the online classes, one of the problems that the students also felt is that I'm not being able to clarify the problems which I do in the class. So this, if we look into it, the emotional problems. One is the frustration was the primary problem. Frustration about various situations, about the educational program, about not being able to understand, not being able to tell people that I don't understand, which has led to irritability in many cases. The parents have told me when they come to the child or to talk to me, I was in the online counseling at times, the irritability and aggressive behavior from the students, from the children that was there, and an anxiety. When I ask sometimes the students, do you feel anxious, or the parents about anxiety, they talk about the physical complex they have, but the psychological component of anxiety, the angst, they are not being able to comprehend well. They say, I have palpitations, I have breathing difficulties, I have a choking sensation, I have a headache, and I feel restless, I cannot concentrate. But the real situation of that, the angst, the feeling of apprehension, the emotional component is very difficult to understand for many of them. And this is something that we have to get into. And there is conflict with teachers. It is not necessarily an open conflict, but there is a subtle inside conflict with teachers. But teachers don't understand that we are going through difficulty. On the other hand, some teachers have told me the students don't understand that we are having problems in getting along through this new program and teaching them. And so that is another thing. The coping stress was quite prominent. And depressive thoughts, and which has taken has gone to the stage of self-harming thoughts and at times self-harming behavior. And what I have found is that self-harming behavior, the rate of self-harming behavior has gone up during this period, particularly among the adolescents, which may not go to the extent of taking care of attempting one's own life, attempting towards the end of ending one's own life, but then self-harming behavior in general speaking is getting. So these are the kind of emotional disturbances the students have gone through. So what we need to do now, or what we have to do? I mean, one of the things all of us can do, which I would call psychological first aid in the words of WHO. The psychological first aid was the theme of the WHO on the World Mental Health Day a couple of years back. So psychological first aid says that all of us can be good listeners. Somebody is in trouble so that we can be good listeners. Who is a good listener? A good listener is a non-biased listener. A good listener is an active listener. He's not a passive listener or a selective listener. A good listener is an active listener, and he's an unbiased listener. And this is something which is very important. But to become a good listener, also one may have to, go through certain, training, how I can be a good listener, how to maintain eye contact, the body language, which is difficult during this time of, online listening, online counseling sessions. So what I feel is that the counseling in such a situation has to be done to all the three components of society pertaining to education. Number one is the parents. They have to understand the problems with that is what is happening with the children. They get irritable and aggressive, they show temper tantrums, and parents respond to that with same amount of aggression and verbal abusive language. So at what point of time they must listen and how they should listen. So intervention with the parents, I think, is an essential component, because online education is going to stay for quite some time more. If not fully, at least partially is going to be there. So that is important. And so the parents have to be able to accept the students, the children, that they are behaving the way that they are doing it. And they must be supporting and understanding. And that is, these are three components that should be incorporated in the parental counseling. Teachers counseling is, somebody has said just now about the teachers have their own families, they have their own problems at home, starting from cooking to somebody attending office, somebody, who doing the work from home, which is, many parents tell me that now the work from home, their hours are longer than it was earlier. So so teachers have to play a double role as a teacher, as a parents also. So they also need some kind of counseling to ease their problems. And students counseling, of course, this is being done. Now, what is being done now in our center available. Some counselors are available all throughout the day, and I think they close down from 10 p.m. onwards till about 6 a.m. in the morning, and they have some trained counselors are always available. Is there? And people also, somebody has talked about stress management techniques. Two simple stress management techniques can be done. One can start the day with a mindfulness, and one can start the day with a deep breathing. By deep breathing, I mean, it's a very simple. One may not call it, one may not give it any, particular fancy word, but it is a deep breathing is, a slow and easy breathing in, inhalation for about 4 seconds, exhalation for about 5 seconds. It must be slow and deep. This, which is tell most of the people that when they're at home, this is something they can do very. And mindfulness, this is a very important, technique that people can follow very easily, which improves concentration, which has been shown to improve concentration. And so once improved concentration also improves memory, and one is under control of one's own activities. So day starts with a very positive note. And so if we incorporate these three aspects of, the parental, the teachers, and intervention the students, I think we can normalize a lot of things. But problems will be there, problems can be solved. We can talk about positivity, but being positive also always is also a hindrance at times, because the pitfalls will be there. How to overcome pitfalls is, I think, something more important. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bhagabati. Counseling of parents, I mean, not specifically in their role as parents, is something I think that we've not actually touched about in any of the other presentations. I think it's an extremely important thing that is just to help students to cope. I think that sometimes having to talk to the parents is absolutely essential. Thank you for raising that, and also about the various problems that that people in the northeast of India will face. I know that there are among the organizers, there's a lot of sensitivity towards Mizoram. So this is an important consideration, and thank you for highlighting that. See, a session like this actually brings about more questions than it answers. A lot of comments are there already on YouTube. And even though the number of viewers today is not that high, let me assure you that people will be coming back to these YouTube videos in time to come. So let me request Madhurima to go ahead and ask a few of those questions. We don't want to go much beyond 4:45 today, but we'll try to at least address the major questions that have come up. Madhu.
Thank you all for a wonderful session. And yes, there have been quite a few questions. I'll just try to paraphrase some of them put together. This is basically from Suzin Datta, who's on YouTube. It looks like the question is like, and I would address this to Pragya Khanna, because she's the administrator here. It appears that the administration of colleges have not figured out what to expect out of teachers or what is to be done and how to deal with it. What would be a few suggestions that as teachers or as this panel can give to the administrators saying, please do these? You have to unmute yourself, please.
These suggestions, I mean, how to deal in these distressing times of corona pandemic is to at least keep yourselves calm, keep yourselves leveled up. That's the key. I mean, whatever situation we are facing now today is, I mean, the key to this problem would be how to deal with all kinds of anxieties and stresses that we are coming around, coping with it in the best possible way, with your time management, with your management of your health, with the management of physical and mental health, I would quote. That's very, very important. No matter your workload has increased, no matter your time slots have decreased, but even then, whatever the situation we are going through, that might be we have to carry it on further for a few more months, or maybe whenever the schools and colleges open up, they might continue doing it in the blended mode. So this is the, I mean, this is to stay. Online teaching would never be off now. It has to stay, and this is how we, I mean, adapt ourselves to managing the kind of lifestyle according to the situation that is existing nowadays. That's the only key. We cannot help it. We cannot, I mean, say that we'll work without technology or we'll just shift back to the older times. That won't be possible now. So we have to adapt. And I mean,
Thank you.
Professor Bhagabati, would you like to add to this? What can we suggest to the administrators? What can they do?
I think that interaction is very important. In our school, the school programs that we are doing with it is a value-based program. It's a value-based education kind of where you're trying to integrate values. So what we have found is that we are also doing online sessions with the teachers and the parents. An interactive session with the parents and teachers is very, very helpful. That is very important. And also the parents, when they are not being able to come, or they are in many parents, they may not have the the infrastructure to interact online, so that they can communicate through letters sometimes, and that can be helpful. And the conflict is when the students want something, the teachers want something, and the parents expect something different, and that is where the conflict arises in the schools, or even in institutes, higher institutes also. So that is where I think the interactive program is very essential. And some of the things, one of the students in a higher institute, one of the leading institutes of India, this particular gentleman told me is that it has become so monotonous, we sometimes bunk classes. I asked him, how do you bunk classes? He said, I switch on the video. But then, I'm not, I'm online, but I switch my video and the audio, then I move around so that the teachers do not know that I'm, but how to break the monotony? Some of the suggestions have been made today to break the monotony, and is important. So interactions between the parents and teachers is very, very important. I'll suggest that.
Okay, thank you for that. And I think the next question I will ask the other panelists, which is like often the course that's taken to tackle anxiety, this is from Professor Bindu Bamba, is either alcohol abuse or substance abuse or, that path. Once a person is already on that path, how do you help them? Dr. Arvinder, could I start with you, please?
Yeah. A very, very pertinent question, and thank you for asking that. So it is not just the students, but it's a go-to behavior for many people when the anxiety or the stress goes on, there is increased use of substance, or there is a beginning of the use of substance. I think if the question is how to sort of get out of it, when there are alternatives, usually people go to that because there is a sense of boredom or a quick fix or something, and the easy availability. So if there is awareness building and there are alternatives that we can have, then we find that this is something that is not go to. And more than the thing, I think we have to also take it on how do we pitch it? Is it that it's all bad? Or is it we give information to people so that they can make informed choices? And I think wherever to our youngsters, we give them information which is enough and we help them make informed choices, they, most of the time, in fact, all the time, and not just young adults, even children, make very healthy choices. Yeah.
But this could be a problem even for the adults, like the teachers themselves.
That's what I said, that, you know, it's not just limited to, so it could be for anyone. It's a go-to, you know. And it's the way it's also been touted, you know, that there's everything that you know, a glass of wine or can fix, you know. So it's actually also the way we correlate the two, and we sort of equate, our brains equate a glass of wine with a sense of feeling relaxed, or even the Bollywood helps you with gum galat karne ke liye sharab, and so on and so forth. So there are a lot of narratives like that, and I think if we just talk about it, give information, and let people make the choices in a more informed way. The more we clamp on it, I think the essence gets lost. It's just, you know, having more alternatives, giving more information, and respecting people enough to know that they will make healthy choices.
Dr. Geetanjali Kumar, would you like to add to this?
Yeah, definitely. See, this is one aspect that we make them help them make informed choices. But there's another lot of people who are into it, who are not able to leave it. And during the pandemic days, during these lockdown period, this increased for them, because this is what I am coming across, where both students and faculty and my other clients are also asking me help in terms of how do I get out of my cigarette, how do I get rid of my alcohol. So what I feel is that equipping them with certain skills, more assertiveness in terms of saying no, identifying that peer group in which their firmness weakens down. I will not drink. I have stopped. I'm trying to decrease my drinking. This is a thought. This is an intent which they verbalize. But in certain peers, this verbalization is not taken seriously. So helping them learn to verbalize this with more firmness, so that it is taken more seriously. So giving them more, helping them to learn more effective communication skills also, and then drawing strength in numbers. Can they identify certain like-minded people in their group who are also wanting to do the same? At times, I am connecting them with people of their own age groups wanting to do the same. So whenever there is an urge and a desire, so a simple diversion being created in their mind, okay, I'll dial so and speak with so and so. We will tend to engage ourselves in a conversation that my impulse to have will decrease. It is trying to bargain with time, buy more time, because the brain asks for it. So that there is that release of that hormone that says ye dil mange more. So that more has to be the desire and actually to have it. So the time gap, if that can be increased, that's how I am trying to
Very
help
practical
some of my
suggestion.
clients.
That's a very practical suggestion. Thank you very much. I have a question for Dr. Deepa Mohan, which is basically that should we resist failing students during this pandemic? You're also the head of the department. So what would your take on that be? Can you please unmute yourself, please?
Failing students meaning should we not fail them is what exactly you meant. Yeah, I mean, looking at the
Sorry, but you're muted.
I said, looking at the practical aspect and looking at what university did, we also did not really fail students. We did go by their internal assessment, and from there we extrapolated their scores, and we have passed most of the students. So the students who, but then for the final years, we did make them write the exam. It was not passing them just like that. So it was not like their degree came easy to them. They had to work hard for it. They had to write the exam. But at the same time, we gave them some concessions, like we reduced the syllabus for them. So I don't think that passing the students easily is the right solution. No, because they should not think it is something like a game that they can just pass, and they don't really have to work hard for it. But I think that realization they should always have, that they need to work hard. They need to be actively working, studying and making sure that they deserve the degree. So that is important. we should not simply just pass them just because, there's a pandemic. I don't agree with that completely at all. And coming back to even one earlier question that you had raised about drinking, drinking should not be taken, if a person is taking it as a stress management technique, then that is definitely to be worked upon. So then we probably have to discuss with the person that this is not the way you would handle your stress. And as even Dr. Geetanjali mentioned, that it does work on the dopamine levels in the brain. So once you are starting to drink and once you get used to drinking, then your brain does not really help you, by kind of, it reduces the dopamine level. So obviously you need to drink or you need to take drugs or whatever. So once a person is educated, once a person is given the alternatives, and as ma'am said, Arvinder, about making an informed choice. So education is important, making them understand that this is not the key to stress management. And of course, giving them a clarity about what exactly the facts are that would help lots of people. Okay, so that is one thing. And of course, not passing them just like that. No, I don't agree with that.
Thank you for that. I have the last question for this panel discussion for Dr. Ashish Roy. I was really impressed with this idea of a circle of air that you spoke for the students, where you have a student and the teacher and the parent and everybody else who's there as a support system. Is there somewhere by which we can create a similar, atmosphere for the teachers who are undergoing stress? Is there a practical way of handling this?
Yeah, it's called a circle of care. And I think, like I was saying, that it's important that the university system acknowledges that the teachers are also undergoing a fair amount of mental health stress. And what we did was that we organized a session on listening to each other called Surviving the Pandemic. And different teachers came and spoke about their experiences, and there were multiple experiences. Some felt very comfortable working from home. Some had lost their close ones. There was nobody for them to be there to mourn with because of all these restrictions. So they had to deal with those losses and continue working alone. So I think it did provide a sense of the fact that there was a sense of community and listening, and having sessions like that and meetings like that is very helpful and required. Also because people are going through so much, and if we were in the regular space of the university, then we would have these conversations. But because we are not, it's important to enable ways of having these conversations.
I think talking is the key, ma'am. To be very frank, talking it out is the key, and having somebody to hear you out. That is, it really solves a lot of problems, because there's nothing else that you can do. But when you discuss with somebody else, you learn from their experiences, you empathize, you probably can share a lot more. And, like how Alcoholic Anonymous works, the same way you learn from people's experiences and try it out with them. And then you also know that you are not alone in this. That's most important. When you know that there are other people who are suffering the same way, you also learn how to help it.
Well, in a very general sense, that is the whole point of DFOT. I hope, one of the messages that we've been trying to broadcast is that we are all in this together.
Yes.
And the problems that we have are the same, whether you're in Jammu or in Visakhapatnam or in Gauhati. Many of the problems are the same. Many of the solutions are not the same because the places are different, the geographies are different, the kind of students we have are different, but we can all learn from each other. And, I want to thank all of you for sharing so openly about the tools and techniques that you all have been applying in your various institutions. What we try to do in our own way every serendipitous Sunday is to try to, to come up with some new things. There are things to learn. The circle of care is also needed for webinar organizers. In addition to asking for, for teachers and students and so on, we do want people to participate. We want people to come together, ask questions, and share your experiences. So let me thank all of you for being with us. In a forthcoming episode of PD, maybe PD 11 or PD 12, we will be talking about the positives of the pandemic. What are the positives of having gone online? Already people have talked about, the fact that we are able to connect with each other across huge distances in space and time and so on. So we will be, but we want more tangible ones, all right? Not just, not just the ability to hold hands across different, Zoom screens, but maybe more. There are positives that are coming out. We also would like to hear from students. You see, so far we've only been talking to teachers. We will be having a session with students. So as they say in the best YouTube channels, stay tuned. Remember to click on the subscribe button and give a big like to Madhurima and her great efforts. Thank you all. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for being here, and hopefully thank you for caring. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.